again by the big jet which landed on the shores of Guyana February 12, 2021. Mr. Speaker, this and every other day as I rise, I thank God for life. And even as I thank God for life, I remember those families, Mr. Speaker, that often struggle to deal and cope with the events of the day. Another day to COVID-19 and related deaths. Another day to cocaine bust. Another day to domestic violence. Another day to wanton dismissal of public servants. Yes, another day to jailbreak. Did I say jail loose out? Yes, Mr. Speaker, and another day of the disappearance of a boat with dead bodies. But Mr. Speaker, the funniest part of this movie is that the boat had no engine. Mr. Speaker, the shattered dreams is splattered with 3Ds. The 3D I speak about, Mr. Speaker, is not the three-dimensional teaching aid that we use to ensure that concepts are taught effectively. Neither am I talking about the 3Ds that the Honorable Member Vishwa Mahadeo used in the House to entice lovers for sex toys. Mr. Speaker, but rather it speaks to disingenuous, disrespectful, and deceitful. Mr. Speaker, no lesser a person than the Honorable Barra Jagdeo spoke of salary increase for public servants. It's the secret of the century. Since the page in the budget document that should speak to wage and salary increase disappeared like the boat with dead bodies. Disrespectful, deceitful, disingenuous, Mr. Speaker. Follow me. Notwithstanding the fact that I am this side of the House, I am House proud. Yes, House proud. Mr. Speaker, I anxiously await the day for the honorable members of the other side to come clean with truth, but rather it's far from reality. But I do believe, even as I wait, Mr. Speaker, that wait will take forever, since decency is not the norm. You know, Mr. Speaker, there's a difference between being honorable and being called honorable. Not every person that wears a crown is known to be a prince. Mr. Speaker, yes, I am house proud. I am house proud not because of this fecal matter, but I'm house proud, Mr. Speaker, because of this, Mr. Speaker. It was under the Apnu+Afc government that we recognized the input of public servants, and the David Lange-led administration would have established a public service college where public servants are trained to be effective as they deliver on a daily basis. Mr. Speaker, I am also proud because of this. Water purification plant was installed at LBI. Prior to then, Mr. Speaker, this is what we had for water. But God bless Apnu+Afc, we received this. Mr. Speaker, I am also house proud as a daughter of the East Coast Region 4. Ever since 2015 May to October 2020, I know not of flooding. But December of 2020, several residents from East Coast had to vacate their homes because of flooding. And why I am proud? Pumps were erected on the East Coast, compliments of APNU AFC. We're still to see the other two pumps at Hope and Belfield commissioned by the PPP. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh, in his budget document on page 47 states, and I quote, "To develop a world-class education system, we intend to ensure equal access to quality education at all levels for all children, regardless of their background, to increase and improve the quality and quantity of trained teachers, learning resources, and materials, and to increase the innovation and technology in order to improve education delivery and learning outcome." Mr. Speaker, I dare say equity is equally important as equality. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member also stated, and I quote, "The public education system inherited by our administration leaves much to be desired. The sector is plunged in inadequate supervision and lack of accountability within the levels, and this needs to be reversed immediately." Mr. Speaker, let me put on record one would have thought that by now, even as education has adjusted to the pandemic and its modalities, there would have been some mechanism in place to add financial burden, to take care of financial burden placed on our teachers and other public servants. But rather, Mr. Speaker, this document only seeks to address furniture, troughs, sinks, PPEs, among other things. No consideration was given to our teachers, when teachers are the ones on the forefront in ensuring the nation's children are continuously taught. Those that mold the nation, Mr. Speaker, we ask, how far long can we wait from now for their contribution to be recognized? How long more do we have to wait to ensure our teachers who impart knowledge, skills, attitude, and values to the learners are adequately cared for? Mr. Speaker, Guyanese experience an era where a one-hand man plays a tune on a one-man band. I am house proud, Mr. Speaker. Yes, it was the APNU AFC government between the years of 2015 and 2019, teachers saw significant improvement of wages and salaries. Mr. Speaker, the learners will receive $15,000 one-off cash grant. But while this is so, how many of them will benefit directly from that $15,000? Disrespectful, disingenuous, deceitful. Mr. Speaker, it was under the APNU AFC government that Guyana was dubbed the best performer in the Caribbean for C6 Cape in the year 2019. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, it was under the APNU AFC government that the National Grade 6 assessment of the public schools came back to the top. And of course, performance of Region 4 remained constant. I turn to my colleague, Dr. Nicolette Henry, and I say, thank you very much, Dr. Nicolette Henry, and the hard-working staff of the sector, Ministry of Education sector, and of course, our valued teachers. Mr. Speaker, I would have served in the teaching profession for well over 28 years, having served in 5 communities. Northbrook Nursery was without security guard, even though that school was commissioned in the year 2000. Youngsters in that community scaled the fence, gaining access to the outdoor equipment and fruit trees. Mr. Speaker, Newtown Nursery School without security guards, even though that institution was commissioned in the year 2002. But what was worrying, Mr. Speaker, is that the staff and learners of that institution, every Monday morning, they brace and face with empty alcoholic containers at the entrance of the school. Lusignan Nursery School, a spanking guard hut which should have been advertised in the classified ads of the Starbuck News. It was under the Apnu+Afc government that these and all other institutions in Region 4 received security guards. And of course, on a 24 hours basis. I am house proud. Mr. Speaker, it was under the Apnu+Afc government that sweeper cleaners no longer receive a paltry sum of $18,000 to $24,000, but rather $58,000 to $64,000 monthly. And yes, for the first time, they enjoyed year-end bonus. But Mr. Speaker, while this is so, these contracted employees have to work the same hours and doing the same chores like their counterparts on the fixed, and they are not remunerated accordingly. Shame, PPP, shame. That's the problem. Shame, PPP, shame. I beg the question, Mr. Speaker. Will the contracted sweeper cleaners be provided with bonus and incentives like the other contracted employees in the other sectors? Will these contracted sweeper cleaners be put on the fixed establishment like their counterparts? We need to remember these are the personnel that keep our institution clean so that the nation's children can be educated in a clean and healthy space. Yes, I am house proud.
Honourable Member, in order to conclude your presentation, you will need an extension of 5 minutes.
Generous, Mr. Speaker, I crave 5 minutes more for my colleague to finish our presentation.
Honourable Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am not taking off my shoe in combat, but rather I want to be comfortable as I bring the facts. The Honourable Member Susan Rodriguez passionately presented her budget of billions of dollars expended 2021 for the improvement in water and sanitation, but none of those monies were allocated to region number 4. Shame, PPP, shame. Mr. Speaker, the communities of Lusignan, Manrepos, Triumph, LBI, and other communities were plunged into water woes since October last. As a matter of fact, the toilets of some of the institutions in these areas cannot be used since water is not going into the building, which is as a result of poor water pressure. Sinks were constructed at institutions on the external, and this is what some of the sinks look like as a result of the poor water pressure when the pipe come on at night. Trip, trap, trip, trap. This is what is there. disingenuous, disrespectful, deceitful. Mr. Speaker, it was under the APNU-AFC government that Barnwell North, Two Friends Housing Scheme, Lusignan Pasture, and other communities in Region Number 4 receive potable water in quantity and quality, and of course on a 24 hours basis. No longer the days of citizens having to take care of domestic chores that require the use of water before 9 p.m. or after full containers. In addition, I have to wait until 6 a.m. for the pipes. I am house proud. Dr. Van West Charles, I say thank you. Mr. Speaker, as I speak, the water pressure in Region 4 is once again house pressure, like the Trinidadian Calypsonian song, Back to Basic. The floor is so weak that residents are no longer enjoying the luxury of shower, but rather they have to use bowls to dip water from bucket to bathe. Mr. Speaker, I wish to address an issue raised by the Honorable Member, Legendre Williams, who reminded this noble House of His Excellency President Granger's encouragement to Guyanese of being entrepreneur. Mr. Speaker, it is better to be selling plantain chips and cook-up rice than to be told one morning your service is no longer needed and you form a part of the statistics. I say this, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues on the other side, subliminal messages will not demoralize us. Plantain chips and cook-up rice are all Guyanese cuisine, of which all of us enjoy. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture would have ventured into the village of Buxton, touting of monies given to improve the ground in that community. Mr. Speaker, under the APNU-AFC government, we improve communities ground in all 10 regions of Guyana. But I need to put on notice, no amount of bribery will buy the Buxtonians. It is that very village that the PPP would have created into a Wild West zone. Mr. Speaker, sons and fathers were murdered. Family cannot find closure. Mr. Speaker, when you go for employment, being told you from Buxton, they turn you back. Mr. Speaker, a mother was gunned down while going to collect her child from school. The backlands bulldozed, Mr. Speaker. These are the things we need to remember. Never you will not buy Buxton. The coalition stand by Buxton.
Honorable Member,
And
I'm afraid your time is up. Please conclude.
in closing, Mr. Speaker, I ask the question, why? Why I, a mother, an educator, a public servant, a Guyanese, accept this as is? It did not cater for public servants, and as such, Mr. Speaker, I said no, I will not. Thank you.